Hey, welcome to a special year-end video in which I'd like to chat a bit about which games I played and a general overlook into the best and worst experiences I had. And as a heads up, I won't necessarily be talking about the games that released in 2016, but the games that I happened to play. I mean, most of them were released in 2016, but yeah, some weren't. So with that out of the way, let's just get straight to the point. Back in January, I played a little gem called Bloodborne Game of the Year Edition. Seems actually a little weird to think that it was only just under a year ago I first played it, as I've actually played through it several times to a point where it feels so familiar, it's strange to think of a time when I wasn't. It's one of those games that absolutely gets under your skin, and whenever I go through a period of not playing, I really do miss it. I miss the visceral combat, the design, the architecture, the fun challenging bosses, the weapons and the level design. Bloodborne for me is the ultimate PvE experience. The mix of mostly fantastic bosses with the aggressive and fast combat is so thrilling, I'm not yet tired of it, not even after a year. Another year highlight has been Doom 2016. My expectations for this were kinda shaky and uncertain. Doom 3 was so disappointing and seemed to have lost a sense of what Doom was supposed to be. I really wasn't sure if we were going to get another Dead Space, Resident Evil ripoff. Then I watched the trailer and that seemed more promising. When the game did drop, it got some decent reviews, some very positive reviews actually. So I did go for it in the end, and yeah, obviously it ended up being a very solid, very fun first-person shooter, going back to the roots of what makes Doom a Doom game. It wasn't trying to be Halo, it felt like a classic 90s shooter. It's a shame Duke Nukem Forever wasn't made by the same team. Perhaps if it was, it would have gotten the same treatment and it wouldn't have ended up into a steaming pile of garbage. Yes, Doom was one of the greats this year. Definitely at its core, it had some very fun gameplay. Now, being a Souls fan, as you might have guessed from some of the other content on this channel, I'm clearly going to mention Dark Souls 3. Dark Souls 3 is pretty much my personal choice for Game of the Year. I know for a lot of people it didn't do much to innovate the franchise, perhaps played it too safe or whatever, but for me, I found my first playthrough to be pretty damn fantastic. The reveal of each new area had me, quite literally, on the edge of my seat. The anticipation to the next boss and enjoying a lot of the online discussion as I was going was actually a new experience for me, as a Souls player. Given that I am quite a latecomer to the franchise, it gave me a feeling that I've never had with the other games. It was also one of the few games I played this year where I would literally look forward to going home and loading it up. I kind of think as well that Dark Souls 3 it doesn't get enough love for how it looks. There are areas within Dark Souls 3 that are just visually stunning. It needs more appreciation. Lothric Castle and Boreal Valley are two examples of its beauty. The Twin Princes arena is especially nice to look at. The lighting in that room is gorgeous. But yeah, Dark Souls 3 is one of my favourites for sure. Uncharted IV also came out this year, this game bringing an end to Drake's adventures. The hype was predictably high for this, what with it being Naughty Dog. People really do expect greatness. Uncharted IV was a lot of fun playing through. It is, without a doubt, one of the better games I played, but it wasn't a perfect Uncharted game. I actually think Uncharted II is the best in the series. Uncharted IV does get off to a rather painfully slow start, where it feels way more like a movie than it should. However, I did appreciate the story of Uncharted IV more than the others. It felt emotionally deeper, like there was more at stake with his brother and Elena. Plus, the ending is clearly trying to get you right in the feels. I won't talk about it for spoilers' sake, I would recommend Uncharted IV purely for the action sequences and the story. The gameplay itself doesn't change that much from previous titles, and as you can imagine, some stellar set pieces and graphics to boot. Deus Ex Mankind Divided was also really enjoyable for me. I love the stealth mechanics of this game. It's not too strict, but it's not too lax either to feel like a breeze all the time. I love the emphasis on exploration. There's a lot of completely optional places to explore where you can find passwords, passcodes, key items, and even the occasional side mission. It gives the game more weight, gives the world more of a structure. Like, this is a version of Prague that really exists. Yes, I will say the ending is rather abrupt, and without getting too much into spoilers, there's a few questionable things that happen. Clearly they're setting themselves up for a sequel. It's a shame it feels like Mankind Divided doesn't really stand up on its own, but aside from that, the actual gameplay is a lot of fun and it's definitely worth your time. I might as well mention Dishonored II on the back of Mankind Divided, as the two games actually had a lot in common. Both stealth based, and both had a heavy encouragement for you to explore. I played the first Dishonored, and whilst I did enjoy it, Dishonored 2 didn't really change things up enough to really warrant itself as a sequel. The only major difference is you get to play as Emily, with slightly different powers. But aside from that, Dishonored 2 feels more like an expansion to Dishonored 1. Graphically, I can't say much has changed either. That being said, the fundamental gameplay to Dishonored 1 is good, so if you're a fan of the first, you're not exactly going to complain a whole great deal. This is a good stealth game, but definitely not as good as Mankind Divided, in my opinion. Trying to get a pacifist run on Dishonored 2 proved difficult as some enemies seemingly died for no reason. Perhaps it was the way they fell to the ground. Honestly, if they fell on a chair, for example, and the chair broke, then they could die from that. Quite frustrating, really. With a few tweaks and a patch though, I'm sure they could fix it. The best thing I liked about Dishonored 2 was the puzzles. Some of these were very satisfying to solve, and trying to find new creative ways to break into the black market in each level was always fun to figure out. Mafia 3 was a disappointment. This comes as no surprise because I made a video talking about how disappointing this sequel was. They really dropped the ball on this one. The content was severely lacking, the map was barren, activities and missions paper thin, and not to mention, the game seemed to be utterly littered with bugs. A huge letdown. I loved Mafia 2, so this was a shame for me to see them kind of fail quite badly. Not enough innovation, not enough depth. It was extremely bland and highly repetitive with pretty much zero replayability. Avoid this one till it's very cheap. Or just avoid it altogether. Ratchet & Clank was so much fun to play. A lot of people describe this as being able to play a Pixar movie, and that really does hit the nail on the head. The graphics are so colourful and bright, it's like just candy for your eyes. The levels are a joy to play through, and the weapons you can use are so responsive you'll have a blast with each one. The only negatives I can say about it is quite on the short side, but don't let that put you off. For sheer enjoyment alone, and to feast your eyes on some amazing graphics, get this game. Now, I did already make a video about Watch Dogs 2, but I feel compelled to make a follow-up to it. I've heard this game isn't selling all that great, which is a huge shame. Watch Dogs 2 is actually very good. It's spot on, in fact. They did so much right with this game, it deserves recognition for it. I'd hate to see there not be a Watch Dogs 3 due to poor sales, because Watch Dogs 2 is exactly how a sequel should be handled in my opinion. They brought in new ideas with the drone and the RC car, they listened to criticism from the first game, and all of the improvements showed. Not to mention how good San Francisco actually looked, and unlike Mafia 3, there's a heck of a lot of side content to pick away at. I'd love to see this game pick up a few awards, but sadly it just doesn't look like that's going to happen. It's a very solid open world with some very entertaining missions. But that's pretty much it. These games, they all struck a chord with me in some way or another, and I thought it was worthwhile to at least summarise them briefly for anyone who was maybe interested. I'll give a quick shout out to Rise of the Tomb Raider whilst I'm still here. I am still playing it, so I couldn't really include it like the rest, but so far it seems much of the same. A wee bit more focus on side missions and exploration, but all in all, it's much the same as Tomb Raider from 2013. So, anyway, thanks for watching. I'd like to do another video talking about next year's games, so until then, bye, and Merry Christmas, I guess. See ya.